Hello and welcome to the trick to becoming flexible for non-flexible people. In this session, I'm going to peel back the curtain on 3 secrets to building flexibility. Number 1, the stretch reflex or myotatic reflex, which is why flexibility is so difficult. Number 2, building stretch tolerance, which is basically what we need to do. And then number 3, isometric stretching, which is how we need to do it. If you've been believing the "I'm not flexible enough" story, then don't worry, I was exactly the same back in 2017 when I started my yoga practice. I used to scroll through Instagram and look at teachers like Kino McGregor and Dylan Werner, and I was in awe of the things that they could do, and I never believed that I could. I didn't come from a dance or a gymnastics background, which is why I'm even more proud to be able to say that now I can actually do a lot of the things that I see them doing. If you are where I was in 2017 and you're still believing the "I'm not flexible enough" story, then stick around until the end of the video where I share some simple methods to start applying to your practice so that you can begin making progress with your flexibility. So let's get into it with number 1, the stretch reflex or myotatic reflex. Now you can think of the stretch reflex as your body's stretch defense mechanism. It is the way your body stops you from injuring yourself. So here's how it works. When you stretch a muscle, you change its length. Now, within muscles are muscle spindles, and they detect those changes in length. So they detect whether it's safe or whether it's unsafe. Now, if you go into a stretch too quickly, that would be deemed unsafe. Equally, if you go and you stretch a little bit too far than your normal range, that's also deemed as unsafe. So those muscle spindles will detect that sudden change in muscle length, and they will send an impulse to your spinal cord, which will react by contracting that muscle, preventing you from stretching any further. Now, this is how the stretch reflex can prevent you from building flexibility. It is automatic and it happens within a matter of milliseconds. You won't even notice it's happening, but it's often what is holding you back from making progress. The best way to overcome the stretch reflex, and this leads me on to secret number 2, is to build stretch tolerance. Now, as the name suggests, building stretch tolerance is our ability to tolerate the discomfort that comes from being in a stretched position. And it's not as simple as just holding the posture for longer. It also comes down to how you hold the poses, like how you perform them. For example, if you practice passively, so that's without any muscle engagement, your body will feel under pressure because there won't be that stability provided by that muscle engagement. And as a result, your stretch reflex is much more likely to be activated because the body needs to create that stability somehow because it feels that there is a potential for injury. So what we need to focus on to build stretch tolerance is building strength to create that support when we are in stretched positions. Now, this is how we can stay in those stretches for longer, but it's also how we can keep the stretch reflex at bay. This leads me on to number 3, isometric stretching. Isometric stretching is a real game changer when it comes to building flexibility, and it's often the missing link that people don't realize. Now, where most people go wrong with flexibility is they focus entirely on relaxing into position. And as hopefully you've learned by now, when we just relax and we just go passive into poses, we're not providing our body with any stability. So the body will feel under pressure and the stretch reflex may be activated. So the best way to get around that is to provide that stability by both strengthening and stretching at the same time, which is essentially an isometric stretch or an isometric contraction. Now, isometric stretching may sound like a mouthful and it may sound very confusing, but really it's quite simple. So let's look at 2 examples that you can start to put into your practice straight away to help you make progress. So the first is for your hamstrings, and this is a half split position, or you may know it as something else if you practice a different movement modality other than yoga. Basically, it's a hamstring stretch. Now, instead of just having the front leg in front of you and just focusing on relaxing the hamstring, I want you to both extend the leg so that you get that length through the hamstring, but also flex the front foot and press your heel down into the mat and draw it back towards your pelvis. Now what this does is it switches on your hamstring, which, as you know, is very good for creating that much needed stability, but it won't actually reduce the amount of length that you're getting through the hamstring. So you're both stretching and strengthening at the same time. And the only thing you needed to do here was to focus on pressing the heel down into the mat and drawing your heel back towards your pelvis. So just two very simple actions to be thinking about the next time you're practicing your half split. So let's look at how we can make Cobra into an isometric stretch. Now, instead of simply pushing the floor away and relaxing the back of the body to go into a deeper back bend, making it very passive, I want you to make it active. So I want you to rely less on pushing the floor away and actually just hold your hands in position without applying any pressure. What this does is it forces you to use the strength in your back to keep the chest elevated. Now, if you're really looking to open the chest even more, squeeze your shoulder blades together. Try to think of holding a pencil in between each shoulder blade. Now, this will help to open the pectoral muscles, to open the whole chest area, and bring the bend further up the back into your thoracic spine. So that's the upper body looked at. Now let's focus on what's going on in the lower body. Many people tend to forget the role that their legs play in back bends, especially when we're in a prone position lying on the floor, because it seems like the legs can just do nothing. That's not the case. When you're in Cobra, focus on pressing your legs down into the mat. At the same time, activate your glutes, so squeeze your buttocks and try to feel for some activation in the back of your thighs into your hamstrings, because your hamstrings and your glutes are part of your spinal extensor group, along with your erector spinae, so along with a set of muscles that run down the side of the spine. So if you're really looking to get maximum points for your Cobra and you're not feeling the activation in your hamstrings, another thing you could do is to flex your feet and bend your knees, as if you're trying to bring your heels towards your glutes. I know this is also known as a hamstring curl. This is very, very effective in back bends because it will strengthen the muscles in the back of the body that will support you in a spinal extension. So those are my 3 flexibility secrets that I think are really helpful if you've been wondering what the trick is. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up and a comment. And if, like me, you are a reader who really likes having information in written form, I condensed all of this information into a guide, and you can get the link in the description box down below.